You walk away from a conversation feeling drained. Not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't said. There was a smile. There were words of encouragement. But something in the air felt wrong, like the temperature in the room dropped the moment you started talking about your success. And now, sitting alone, you replay the interaction in your head, searching for the evidence you can't find. There was no insult, no betrayal, no fight. So why does your chest feel heavy? Why does your intuition whisper, that person doesn't want you to win? You tell yourself you're overthinking. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. But what if that whisper isn't paranoia? What if it's the most ancient, intelligent part of your brain, detecting a threat that your conscious mind refuses to accept? Carl Jung spent a lifetime mapping the hidden territories of the human psyche. And what he discovered is unsettling. He found that within every person, there exists a shadow, a collection of suppressed emotions, unspoken resentments, and silent competitions that never see the light of day. This shadow doesn't announce itself with aggression. It doesn't confront you. Instead, it wears the mask of friendship, loyalty, and support. It claps for you, but just a second too late. It congratulates you, but with eyes that don't light up. And if you keep ignoring these subtle signals, you don't just risk betrayal. You risk spending years giving your energy, your trust, and your light to people who are secretly feeding on it. In this video, we're going to explore the 8 most disturbing signs that someone close to you harbors hidden hostility. Not mere dislike, not casual envy, but a deep, simmering resentment that operates beneath the surface of every interaction. By the time we reach the final sign, you will never look at a smile the same way again. You will understand why your body reacts before your mind does, and you will finally have the language to describe what you've always felt but could never prove. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The joke that cuts. You're in a group setting. Someone makes a comment about your past, your career, your appearance. Everyone laughs. You feel your stomach tighten. You force a smile, because to react would make you the problem. Later, when you bring it up privately, the response is always the same. It was just a joke. You're too sensitive. But here's what no one tells you about jokes. When a joke consistently targets your insecurities, it stops being humor. It becomes a surgical tool. The person wielding it knows exactly where you are vulnerable. They know which wounds are still healing, and they poke at those wounds in public, under the cover of laughter, ensuring that any reaction you have makes you look fragile. This is not comedy. This is contempt dressed up in punchlines. Carl Jung observed that when individuals refuse to confront their own inadequacies, they project those inadequacies outward. They cannot deal with their own shame, so they manufacture shame in you. The sarcasm becomes a release valve for their internal pressure. They feel small, so they make you feel smaller. They feel overlooked, so they make you the target of the room's laughter. The danger here is that it's almost impossible to call out without appearing defensive. You're trapped in a dynamic where they can hurt you repeatedly, and the moment you defend yourself, you're labeled as the one who can't take a joke. This is psychological warfare disguised as friendship. Pay attention to whose humor leaves you feeling smaller. Pay attention to the people who always seem to find the funny side of your struggles, but never their own. Chapter 2. The Curse of the Forgotten Detail. There's a particular kind of person who always forgets to tell you the one thing you needed to know. You're applying for a position, and they casually mention after the deadline that they knew someone on the hiring committee. You're planning an event, and they neglect to inform you about a critical change in schedule until it's too late. They don't sabotage you in obvious ways. They don't lie to your face. They simply withhold. And they do it with such consistency that you begin to question whether it's intentional. But here's the psychological pattern to watch for. Does this forgetfulness always benefit them? Does it always leave you at a disadvantage while they remain untouched? Does it always happen at moments when your success would make them look less successful by comparison? Jung described a phenomenon where individuals who feel inferior will unconsciously or consciously work to lower the status of those around them. They cannot rise, so they ensure no one else does either. The withholding of information is one of the most effective methods because it's nearly impossible to prove. They didn't lie. They just didn't share. They didn't hurt you. They just overlooked a detail. But patterns don't lie. If every time you are on the verge of a breakthrough, this person's memory fails them, you are not dealing with forgetfulness. You are dealing with a quiet, passive strategy to keep you contained. They don't want to lose you. They just don't want you to surpass them. And so they operate as a gatekeeper to your own growth, always standing just close enough to claim they're helping, while strategically blocking the path forward. What does it say about a person when their support only seems to exist when you're struggling? Chapter 3. The invisible scoreboard. You share news of a promotion. Their face shifts for a fraction of a second, a micro-expression you almost miss, before they recover and offer a smile. Then, within moments, they redirect the conversation to their own recent achievement. It's not that they ignore your win. It's that your win triggers an immediate need to reestablish hierarchy. They can't simply celebrate with you because your success feels like a subtraction from their own value. This is the silent competition. It never announces itself. It never says, "I want to beat you." Instead, it operates through a constant, unspoken calculus where every one of your gains must be matched or neutralized. Jung wrote extensively about the shadow's relationship with envy. He understood that envy is not simply a desire for what another has. It is a painful reminder of what one has neglected within themselves. When you achieve something, you become a mirror reflecting their own stagnation. And rather than confront that reflection, they try to dim the mirror. They don't attack you directly. They just ensure that your light never outshines theirs. You'll notice this dynamic in the way they respond to your milestones. There's a hesitation before the congratulations, a flatness in the tone, a quick pivot to their own news. You didn't enter a competition, but they did. And they will continue to treat every interaction as a contest until you either stop sharing your wins or stop including them in your life. The exhausting part is that you can feel the weight of this competition even when nothing overt is said. You learn to filter your joy, to downplay your accomplishments, to make yourself smaller, just to keep the peace. And that, more than anything, is the cost of staying close to someone who sees your growth as a threat. Chapter 4. The hollow kindness. There are people who say all the right words but never convey any warmth. They tell you they're proud of you, but you feel nothing. They offer support, but their presence feels like an obligation. You can't point to a single thing they've done wrong. They've never insulted you, never betrayed you, never openly dismissed you. Yet you feel empty after every interaction. This is what happens when kindness becomes a performance. Genuine connection isn't just about the words spoken. It's about the energy behind them. It's about whether someone's nervous system aligns with their speech. When a person is emotionally disconnected, when they've dissociated from their own capacity for empathy, they can still mimic the behaviors of care. They can say, "I'm here for you," while feeling nothing. They can hug you while their body remains rigid. Jung referred to this as a form of ego dissociation, where the individual becomes so cut off from their own emotional reality that they lose the ability to truly connect. They move through relationships like actors reading lines from a script, and the tragedy is that you sense the absence long before you can articulate it. You feel the lack of warmth. You notice the absence of spontaneous joy in your presence. You realize they are never truly present when you need them most. They show up for the easy moments, the celebrations, the public acknowledgments, but vanish when you're in crisis. Or if they do show up, they bring a detached, almost clinical energy that leaves you feeling lonelier than before. This is not friendship. It is proximity without intimacy, and the longer you stay in such a relationship, the more you begin to doubt your own perception. You think, they said the right things. Why do I feel so empty? The answer is simple. Because what matters is not what people say, but whether they are truly there. And some people have perfected the art of being absent while standing right in front of you. Chapter 5. The Cage of Concern. This is perhaps the most insidious form of hidden hostility, because it wears the mask of love. The person positions themselves as your protector, your guide, the voice of reason in your life. They caution you against risks. They warn you about the dangers of pursuing your dreams. They tell you they're only looking out for your well-being. And because their words sound reasonable, because they sometimes even contain a grain of truth, you begin to doubt yourself. You second-guess your decisions. You seek their approval before moving forward. You start to believe that you need their guidance to navigate your own life. But here's what's really happening. They are not protecting you. They are protecting their control over you. Jung observed that individuals who feel powerless in their own lives often attempt to dominate others as a way of restoring a sense of order. Their internal world is chaotic, filled with unmanaged emotions, unfulfilled ambitions, and unresolved conflicts. They cannot fix themselves, so they fix you. They cannot face their own failures, so they prevent you from succeeding. The manipulation is subtle. It never looks like coercion. It looks like wisdom. It sounds like maturity. But the outcome is unmistakable. You shrink. Your dreams become smaller. Your confidence erodes. You begin to ask permission for things you once pursued without hesitation. And through it all, they remain calm, concerned, and completely convinced of their own righteousness. The most difficult part of recognizing this dynamic is that they often believe their own narrative. They truly think they are helping you. They cannot see that their help is a cage. They cannot understand why you feel suffocated by their concern. And if you try to break free, they will frame your independence as recklessness, your autonomy as ingratitude. To leave this dynamic, you must accept a difficult truth. Some people's love is conditional on your dependence. They don't want you to fly. They want you to stay in the nest they've built for you. And if you choose to leave, they will not celebrate your flight. They will mourn the loss of control. Is someone protecting you, or are they protecting their ability to direct your life? Chapter 6. The Whisper Campaign. You notice a shift in how others treat you. People who were once warm become distant. Colleagues you trusted start looking at you differently. You can't pinpoint when it began, but you feel it, a subtle erosion of your reputation, a quiet poisoning of your relationships. This is the work of the whisperer, the person who smiles in your face while quietly undermining you to everyone else. They don't confront you directly, because that would require courage. Instead, they choose the coward's path. They share just enough information to create doubt. They question your intentions in ways that seem innocent. They paint themselves as the concerned friend, while subtly implying that you are difficult, unstable, or untrustworthy. Jung understood this dynamic as projection amplified through social networks. When someone harbors intense envy or resentment toward you, but cannot express it directly, they release it through indirect channels. They recruit others to share their negative perception. They create a coalition of suspicion that isolates you, without ever having a single confrontation. The damage is cumulative. Each small comment, each implied criticism, each moment of shared concern about you builds a narrative that you cannot defend against because you never hear the original accusation. You only feel its effects. Friends become distant. Opportunities close. You're left wondering what you did wrong, searching for an explanation that doesn't exist. because the problem was never your behavior. It was their need to diminish you. And the cruelest part? The whisperer will maintain their friendly facade with you throughout. They will continue to smile, to chat, to act as though nothing is wrong. They rely on your desire for harmony, your reluctance to accuse without evidence. They count on the fact that by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. This is why paying attention to sudden shifts in how others perceive you is essential. If your behavior hasn't changed but your social environment has, you're likely dealing with someone who has decided to manage their own inadequacy by dismantling your reputation. Chapter 7. The absence of joy. There is a particular pain that comes from sharing your success with someone and receiving nothing in return. No celebration, no excitement, not even a convincing fake enthusiasm. Just a flat, neutral response that feels worse than criticism. You showed them your progress, your achievement, the result of your struggle, and they gave you nothing. This absence of joy is one of the most revealing signs of hidden hostility, because it requires no action. The person doesn't have to do anything negative. They simply fail to do something positive. And in that failure, their true feelings become visible. Jung wrote that those who cannot rejoice in another's joy are prisoners of their own stagnation. Your success becomes a mirror reflecting their lack of progress. Every time you rise, they are confronted with where they remain. And rather than use that reflection as motivation to grow, they turn away. They withhold celebration, because celebrating would mean acknowledging that you have something they don't. The dynamic is particularly painful when this person supported you during your struggles. When you were low, they were present. They offered comfort, advice, presence. But now that you're rising, they've disappeared. Not physically, perhaps, but emotionally. They're still there, but the warmth is gone. The energy has shifted, and you're left wondering if their support was ever about you, or if it was about how your struggles made them feel necessary, valuable, superior. The truth is painful, but clarifying. Some people don't want you to fail. They want you to struggle just enough to need them. They want you to grow, but never surpass them. They want your success, but only as long as it doesn't outshine their own. When your growth exceeds their comfort zone, they retreat. Not because you've changed, but because your change reveals what they haven't become. Chapter 8. The body's betrayal. We arrive now at the most important sign, the one that transforms how you perceive everyone in your life. Words can be crafted, smiles can be rehearsed, compliments can be scripted, but the human body does not lie. It cannot. Your nervous system reacts before your conscious mind can intervene. Micro-expressions flash across faces in fractions of a second. Posture shifts instinctively. The eyes reveal what the mouth conceals. Carl Jung emphasized that the unconscious communicates constantly through the body. When someone feels genuine warmth toward you, their entire being aligns with that feeling. Their eyes soften, their shoulders relax, their breathing synchronizes with yours. They lean toward you unconsciously. Their voice carries a resonance that no amount of acting can replicate. But when someone harbors hidden hostility, their body leaks the truth. The smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The jaw that tightens when you speak about your success. The subtle turning away of the torso, creating a barrier. The hands that gesture toward the exit, even while the words promise presence. The delayed reaction to your good news. That half-second pause before the forced smile. You feel these signals before you analyze them. Your own nervous system detects the mismatch between words and energy. This is your intuition, your ancient survival mechanism, warning you that something is off. But most people have been conditioned to ignore these signals. We've been taught to prioritize politeness over perception. We second-guess our instincts because we can't articulate what's wrong. We tell ourselves we're being paranoid, oversensitive, dramatic. Meanwhile, our bodies are trying to protect us. The heaviness in your chest after interacting with certain people is not anxiety. It's data. The feeling of being drained after time with someone is not coincidence. It's your energy being siphoned by a presence that isn't aligned with your well-being. The discomfort you feel around certain individuals is not irrational. It's the most rational part of you detecting a threat that your conscious mind hasn't fully recognized. Learning to trust these signals is one of the most important skills you can develop. It requires you to value your own perception over social conditioning. It requires you to acknowledge that some people can be harmful without ever being overtly hostile. And it requires you to act on what your body already knows, even when you can't produce the evidence to justify your decision. The next time you leave an interaction feeling unsettled, don't talk yourself out of it. Sit with the feeling. Ask yourself what your body was trying to tell you. The answer is already there. The turning point. What you do with this knowledge. Now that you see the signs, you face a choice. The natural response is to confront, to expose, to demand explanations. But confrontation rarely serves you in these dynamics. The person harboring hidden hostility has spent months or years constructing a narrative in which they are the reasonable one, the supportive one, the misunderstood one. Your accusation will not shatter that narrative. It will reinforce it. They will weaponize your frustration as proof of your instability. They will position themselves as the victim of your paranoia, and you will be left looking like the problem you tried to expose. This is not cowardice. This is strategy. You don't need them to admit what they've done. You don't need them to validate your experience. You don't need closure from the person who closed themselves to you long ago. What you need is distance. Not necessarily dramatic cutting off, though that may be necessary in some cases, but a recalibration of how much access this person has to your life, your energy, and your inner world. You need boundaries that protect your peace without requiring the other person's agreement. This is where most people fail. They believe boundaries require the other person to understand and respect them. They don't. Boundaries are simply decisions you make about what you will and will not tolerate. You can stop sharing your victories with someone who can't celebrate them. You can limit your time with someone who leaves you feeling drained. You can stop seeking approval from someone who uses their opinion to control you. These actions don't require a conversation. They don't require permission. They require only the courage to prioritize your well-being over someone else's comfort. The deeper psychology. Why they do this. To fully protect yourself, you must understand the psychology behind this behavior. It's not enough to label people as toxic or envious. Those labels explain nothing. The deeper truth is that hidden hostility almost always stems from unaddressed inadequacy. The person who secretly resents you is not primarily focused on you. They are focused on themselves. You are simply the stage on which their internal drama plays out. Jung's concept of the shadow explains this perfectly. Every human being has aspects of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. Failures, insecurities, dark impulses, unfulfilled potential. These aspects don't disappear because they're ignored. They fester, and they seek expression. When someone cannot face their own shadow, they project it onto others. You become the container for everything they hate about themselves. Your success becomes their failure. Your confidence becomes their insecurity. Your growth becomes their stagnation. They don't hate you. They hate what you represent, the version of themselves they were too afraid to become. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it liberates you from taking it personally. Their hostility is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their internal war. And you are not responsible for managing their war. You are not required to shrink so they can feel larger. You are not obligated to dim your light so their shadow feels less dark. The most compassionate thing you can do for them And the most protective thing you can do for yourself is to remove yourself from the role they've assigned you. Stop being the mirror they can't face. Stop being the target of their projections. Step aside and let them contend with their own shadow without using you as a distraction. The integration, living with clearer vision. When you fully absorb this understanding, your relationships transform. You stop seeking validation from people who are incapable of giving it. You stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop hoping that the person who resents your growth will one day celebrate it. You accept that some people can only be in your life at a distance. This is not bitterness. It is clarity. It is the recognition that you cannot pour your energy into someone who uses that energy against you. You cannot trust someone whose body signals danger while their mouth promises safety. You cannot stay connected to someone who needs you to stay small so they can feel big. The path forward is not isolation. It is discernment. You learn to distinguish between people who genuinely want you to succeed and those who want you to succeed only as long as you don't surpass them. You learn to trust the signals your body has been sending you all along. You learn to prioritize your peace over your politeness. And you learn that the most powerful boundary you can set is the decision to stop giving your energy to people who cannot receive it without trying to take more. Closing insight. So here is the final truth. The people who secretly resent you are not your enemies in the conventional sense. They are not plotting your downfall with conscious intention. They are simply unable to face themselves. And because they cannot face themselves, they cannot truly see you. They see only what your presence triggers in them. And that is not your burden to carry. You did not come into this world to manage the insecurities of those who cannot manage their own. You did not arrive here to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You came to grow, to expand, to become the fullest version of yourself. And anyone who cannot celebrate that growth does not deserve a front row seat to it. The most radical act of self-respect is to stop seeking approval from people who are incapable of giving it. To stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. To stop hoping that the ones who resent your light will one day learn to love it. Some people will never clap for you. Some people will never celebrate you. Some people will watch your success with the same hollow eyes they've always had. And that is not your failure. It is their limitation. Your only responsibility is to keep growing, keep expanding, keep becoming the person you were meant to be, and to let those who cannot rise with you fall away, not through anger, but through the simple, powerful act of refusing to stay small for their comfort. The question is not whether they will change. The question is whether you will continue to give your energy to someone who cannot return it. The answer, when you're ready, will set you free.